The morning sun beat down mercilessly on the sprawling military training facility as recruits stumbled out of their barracks, still adjusting to the harsh reality of Navy SEAL preparation. Among the sea
Ma'am,
of
updated
muscular,
coordinates. Hostiles moving
determined
east.
faces,
Show me.
one figure
Timeline.
stood
Within the
out
hour. Aerial
like a sore
confirms.
thumb.
Mobilize now.
Maya
Squads move to
Rodriguez
phase line
was
beta.
barely
Roger, moving
5
out.
feet
Stay
4
sharp.
inches
Report all
tall, with a
contacts.
slender build that seemed laughably inadequate for the brutal training ahead. Her dark hair was pulled back in regulation style, and her brown eyes held a quiet determination that most of her fellow recruits dismissed as naive optimism. The other trainees had been whispering about her since day one. How had someone like her even made it past the initial screening? The consensus among the group was clear. She was either a diversity hire or had connections in high places. Nobody believed she belonged there on merit alone. The mockery started subtle, with sideways glances and suppressed chuckles, but, as the days wore on, it became increasingly bold and cruel. "Hey, Rodriguez," called out Jake Morrison, a towering former college football player from Texas. "You sure you're in the right place? The cheerleading tryouts are probably down the hall." His comment drew laughter from the cluster of men surrounding him, their voices echoing across the training yard. Maya kept walking, her expression unchanged, but those who looked closely might have noticed the slight tightening around her eyes. The physical training sessions were particularly brutal for Maya. While her male counterparts struggled with the demanding exercises, they still managed to complete most tasks through sheer brute force. Maya had to rely on technique, endurance, and an almost supernatural level of mental toughness. When they did log carries, she had to find creative ways to manage weights that were proportionally much heavier for her smaller frame. During rope climbs, while others powered up through arm strength, she used her entire body efficiently, moving like a dancer up the rope. But efficiency and technique meant nothing to her fellow trainees. They saw only that she took longer, that she sometimes needed multiple attempts, that she occasionally fell behind during runs. What they didn't see was that she never quit, never complained, and somehow always managed to meet the minimum standards, even if just barely. "I give her 2 weeks," muttered Chris Patterson, a former Marine who had transferred to the SEAL program. "Maybe less. First time we hit the ocean for surf torture, she's gonna ring that bell faster than you can say mommy." The bell he referred to was the infamous brass bell that trainees could ring to quit the program at any time. It was both a symbol of failure and, for those who couldn't handle the pressure, a merciful escape. The instructors seemed to share the trainees' skepticism. Petty Officer First Class Thompson, a grizzled veteran with arms like tree trunks and a voice that could shatter glass, made no effort to hide his doubts about Maya's presence in the program. During equipment checks, he would linger at Maya's station, scrutinizing her gear with extra intensity. During exercises, his critical eye seemed to follow her movements more than anyone else's. "Rodriguez," Thompson barked during a particularly grueling obstacle course session. "Your form on that rope traverse was sloppy. Do it again." Maya nodded without argument and returned to the beginning of the obstacle. On her second attempt, her form was flawless, but Thompson found another fault. Too slow. Again, this pattern continued until Maya had completed the obstacle 5 times, while other trainees moved on to the next challenge. The psychological pressure was perhaps even more challenging than the physical demands. During meal times, Maya often found herself sitting alone as conversations stopped when she approached tables. The isolation was deliberate and complete. Her bunkmates would fall silent when she entered the barracks, resuming their conversations only after she had passed. It was a form of social warfare designed to break her spirit. Yet Maya endured it all with a stoic determination that began to unnerve some of her tormentors. She never retaliated against the verbal jabs, never complained to the instructors about the treatment, and never showed any sign that the pressure was getting to her. If anything, she seemed to draw strength from their doubt, using their mockery as fuel for her own fire. The first major test came during the 3rd week of training. The infamous drown-proofing exercise required trainees to complete a series of swimming tasks while bound hand and foot. It was designed to test not just swimming ability, but mental toughness and the ability to remain calm under extreme stress. Many large, strong men had failed this test, overcome by panic in the water. As the trainees lined up at the edge of the pool, the atmosphere was tense. Several had already dropped out of the program rather than face this particular challenge. Maya stood in line, smaller than everyone around her, but her breathing was steady and controlled. The whispers started immediately. "She's gonna drown," someone muttered. "No way she has the lung capacity for this. Should we have a medic standing by just for her?" Another voice added with mock concern. Instructor Thompson approached the group, his steel-gray eyes scanning each face. "This exercise has a purpose," he announced, his voice carrying across the pool area. "It's not just about swimming. It's about controlling your mind when your body is screaming at you to panic. It's about finding calm in chaos. Some of you think you know who's going to fail today. You might be surprised." The exercise began with the stronger swimmers, each taking their turn in the water while their hands and feet were bound. Most managed to complete the required tasks, though several struggled significantly. A few failed entirely, unable to maintain their composure once they hit the water. As Maya's turn approached, the crowd of observers grew larger. Word had spread through the training facility that the little girl was about to attempt drown-proofing. When Thompson called her name, Maya stepped forward without hesitation. The instructor, binding her hands and feet, looked at her with something approaching sympathy. "You sure about this, recruit?" he asked quietly. Maya met his gaze steadily. "Yes, sir." As she entered the water, the pool fell silent except for the gentle lapping of waves against the sides. What happened next would become legendary among that training class. Maya moved through the water with an almost supernatural grace. Her bound body undulated like a dolphin. Her breathing was controlled and rhythmic, and she completed each required task with textbook precision. Not only did she pass the exercise, she completed it faster than half of her male counterparts. The silence that followed her emergence from the pool was deafening. No one had expected this level of performance from someone they had written off as a quota filler. But Maya's expression remained unchanged as she was unbound and dried off. She had proven a point without saying a word, though whether anyone was willing to acknowledge it remained to be seen. That evening, the dynamic in the barracks was noticeably different. The outright mockery had dimmed to uncertain murmurs, and a few trainees even nodded acknowledgement when Maya passed. But the core group of antagonists, led by Morrison and Patterson, weren't ready to concede anything. "One good day doesn't prove anything," Morrison declared to his circle of followers. "She probably just got lucky. Wait until we hit the really hard stuff. Wait until people start shooting at us in training scenarios. Then, we'll see what she's really made of." Unknown to her tormentors, Maya had been listening from her bunk. As she lay in the darkness that night, she wasn't thinking about the day's triumph or the continued hostility from her peers. Instead, her mind drifted to memories that no one in this place knew about, experiences that had forged her into something far stronger than her appearance suggested. Her hand unconsciously moved to her left shoulder, where beneath her regulation shirt lay a tattoo that told a story none of these men could imagine. The tattoo was small and easily concealed, which is why no one had noticed it during medical examinations or group showers. It consisted of intricate symbols and numbers that, to the untrained eye, might look like decorative artwork or perhaps a memorial to a lost loved one. But to those who knew how to read such things, it told a very different story about exactly who Maya Rodriguez was and where she had come from. As sleep finally claimed her, Maya's dreams were filled not with the challenges of SEAL training, but with memories of a different kind of training, in a different place, with different rules. She had walked a path that made this current ordeal seem almost manageable by comparison. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities for her classmates to underestimate her, and new chances for her to prove that appearances could be devastatingly deceptive. The irony was that while her fellow trainees spent their energy mocking her perceived weaknesses, they remained completely unaware that the most dangerous person in their entire class was sleeping quietly in the bunk they passed every day. Maya Rodriguez was indeed not what she appeared to be, but the truth was far more extraordinary than any of them could have guessed. The weeks that followed Maya's drown-proofing success brought increasingly difficult challenges, and, with them, a gradual shift in the dynamics of the training class. While the core group of antagonists maintained their hostility, cracks were beginning to show in their united front. Some trainees had started to question their initial assessments, though none were brave enough to voice these doubts openly. The combat training phase introduced weapons handling, tactical scenarios, and close-quarters combat techniques. This was where many expected Maya to finally reveal her limitations. After all, physical confrontation seemed to be the one area where her smaller stature would be an insurmountable disadvantage. The men looked forward to these sessions with barely concealed anticipation. Instructor Sergeant Martinez, a compact but powerfully built man with extensive special operations experience, oversaw the hand-to-hand combat training. He had been observing Maya with increasing interest since the drown-proofing exercise, noting details that the other trainees had missed. Her movement patterns, her breathing techniques, and, most intriguingly, her absolute lack of fear during physical confrontations. Combat training isn't about size, Martinez announced to the assembled class as they gathered on the padded training mats. It's about technique, timing, and, most importantly, mindset. The person who wins a fight isn't always the biggest or strongest. Sometimes it's the one who understands violence better. The training began with basic techniques, escapes from various holds, defensive positioning, and simple striking combinations. Maya partnered with different trainees as the instructor rotated assignments, and each pairing told a story. When matched against smaller or less aggressive partners, she moved with controlled precision that impressed even the skeptics. But when facing the larger, more aggressive men like Morrison or Patterson, something different emerged. During one particular sparring session, Maya was paired with Rick Coleman, a former wrestler who outweighed her by nearly 100 pounds. Coleman was known for his aggressive style and had been vocal about his belief that women had no place in special operations. As they squared off, his intention was clear. He was going to make a statement by completely dominating this match. Coleman lunged forward with the confidence of someone who had never lost a grappling match to anyone close to Maya's size. What happened next defied everything the watching trainees thought they knew about combat dynamics. Maya didn't try to match his strength or resist his forward momentum. Instead, she seemed to flow around his attack like water around a rock, using his own force against him. In a movement too quick for most observers to follow, Coleman found himself face down on the mat with Maya, controlling his arm in a position that could have easily resulted in dislocation or fracture. Tap out. Coleman gasped, his earlier confidence replaced by genuine alarm. Maya released him immediately and stepped back, offering a hand to help him up. Her expression remained neutral, professional, as if what had just occurred was routine rather than remarkable. The silence that followed was heavy with implications. Coleman was respected among the trainees as one of their most formidable fighters. His defeat wasn't just unexpected, it was incomprehensible to those who still viewed Maya through the lens of their preconceptions. Instructor Martinez, however, was watching Maya with new understanding. The techniques she had just displayed weren't typical military training. They suggested a background in specialized martial arts, the kind of training that took years to master and wasn't available in standard military programs. His curiosity was now fully engaged. "Interesting technique, Rodriguez," Martinez said, approaching her after the session. "Where did you learn to fight like that?" Maya's response was carefully neutral. "Various places, Sergeant. I've always been interested in martial arts." It was a non-answer that revealed nothing while technically being truthful. Martinez recognized the deflection for what it was, but chose not to press the issue immediately. However, his instincts, honed by years of working with elite operators, told him there was much more to Maya Rodriguez than her personnel file indicated. The psychological warfare from her classmates intensified after the Coleman incident. Unable to dismiss her performance as luck, some of the men resorted to more personal attacks. They questioned her sexuality, her motivations for joining the SEALs, and spread rumors about how she might have gained entry to the program. The whispers followed her everywhere, designed to wear down her mental defenses. "She's probably got connections all the way to the Pentagon," Patterson muttered during a weapons cleaning session. "No way someone like her makes it this far without serious pull from above. Or maybe she's got some kind of martial arts background from her time as a stripper or something," Morrison added with a cruel laugh. "You know how those places teach girls to defend themselves from grabby customers." Maya continued to ignore the comments, but those observing closely might have noticed subtle changes in her behavior. Her movements became more controlled, more precise, as if she was actively suppressing instincts that wanted to surface. During weapons training, her accuracy was remarkable, consistently scoring in the top percentiles despite having no documented military experience with firearms. The mystery deepened during a navigation and survival exercise in the nearby mountains. Trainees were dropped in unfamiliar terrain with minimal equipment and required to reach designated checkpoints using only compass and map. It was designed to test not just navigation skills, but the ability to function under stress in hostile environments. Maya was assigned to a team with 3 other trainees, including Davis, one of the few men who had remained neutral in the ongoing hostility toward her. As their team made its way through the rugged terrain, Maya's behavior once again defied expectations. She moved through the wilderness with a confidence that spoke of extensive experience, reading terrain features and weather patterns with an expertise that puzzled her teammates. When their team encountered a steep ravine that wasn't marked on their maps, the others began discussing lengthy detours. Maya studied the obstacle for a moment, then pointed to a series of rock formations that would allow them to descend safely. "The rock face is solid there," she said, indicating handholds that the others hadn't noticed. "We can rappel down using our rope and save 3 hours of hiking." Davis looked at the proposed route skeptically. "That's pretty advanced climbing, Rodriguez. You sure about this?" Maya was already unpacking rope and setting up anchors with movements that spoke of extensive technical climbing experience. Her knot work was flawless, her anchor placement textbook perfect. She descended first to demonstrate the route, moving down the cliff face with the fluid confidence of someone who had done this countless times before. The other team members followed her lead, and her route choice proved perfect. They reached their checkpoint hours ahead of schedule, finishing the exercise among the top performers. But, once again, Maya's exceptional competence only raised more questions about her background. The breaking point came during a night combat exercise designed to test performance under extreme stress. Trainees were run through a complex scenario involving multiple objectives, live ammunition with safety protocols, and psychological pressure designed to simulate real combat conditions. It was the kind of training that separated those with genuine potential from those who were merely physically capable. Maya's team was assigned to infiltrate a mock enemy compound, gather intelligence, and extract without detection. The exercise was designed to be nearly impossible, with instructors playing the role of enemy forces and multiple failure points built into the scenario. Most teams were expected to fail, but their performance under pressure was what mattered. As Maya's team moved through the darkened training facility, her behavior once again stood out. She navigated the mock compound with an instinctive understanding of building layouts, threat assessment, and tactical movement that went far beyond basic military training. When her team encountered an unexpected patrol, Maya's response was immediate and professional. She neutralized the threat using techniques that left her teammates stunned and the instructors taking careful notes. "Where the hell did you learn to do that?" whispered Rodriguez, the team's designated leader, as they regrouped after the encounter. Maya's only response was a slight shake of her head, indicating that questions would have to wait until after the mission was complete. Her focus was absolute, her movements precise, and her decision-making flawless. She was operating at a level that suggested extensive real-world experience in exactly these types of scenarios. The exercise concluded with Maya's team achieving complete success, a result that occurred less than 10% of the time. As they debriefed with the instructors, Maya once again deflected questions about her background while accepting praise for her performance. But the instructors were beginning to share information among themselves, comparing notes about the increasingly mysterious recruit who seemed to possess skills and knowledge that her file didn't explain. Unknown to the trainees and most of the instructors, word of Maya Rodriguez was starting to filter up the command structure. Her exceptional performance, combined with the mystery surrounding her background, had attracted attention from officers who specialized in identifying unusual talent. Questions were being asked through official channels, requests were being made for additional background information, and, very quietly, certain security clearances were being verified. The tattoo on Maya's shoulder remained hidden beneath her regulation clothing, but its significance was about to become relevant in ways that would shock everyone involved in the training program. The symbols and numbers that made up the design were about to be seen by someone who would recognize their meaning immediately, and when that happened, everything about Maya Rodriguez's presence in the SEAL program would suddenly make sense. As the training program entered its most challenging phase, Maya continued to excel while maintaining her emotional distance from both praise and criticism. She had learned long ago that revealing too much too soon could be dangerous, and that the most effective operators were often those who remained underestimated until the moment their true capabilities were revealed. That moment was approaching faster than anyone realized. The training facility buzzed with an undercurrent of tension as word spread that a senior SEAL commander would be visiting to observe the current class. Commander David Harrison was a legend in special operations circles, a man whose career spanned multiple theaters of conflict and whose reputation for identifying exceptional talent was unmatched. His visits were rare and significant, usually indicating that someone in the training class had caught the attention of higher command. For the trainees, this represented both opportunity and pressure. Performing well in front of Commander Harrison could fast-track a career, while failure could mark the end of SEAL aspirations. The announcement had been made during the morning briefing, and the ripple effects were immediate and visible. "This is it," Morrison declared to his usual circle of followers. "Real evaluation by someone who matters. Finally, someone who'll see through any political correctness and judge us based on actual capability." His implication about Maya was clear, and the sentiment was echoed by others who still refused to acknowledge her consistent performance. They viewed Commander Harrison's visit as validation pending, assuming that a veteran operator would immediately recognize what they saw as Maya's unsuitability for the program. Maya herself received the news with the same controlled composure she displayed toward everything else. But those observing carefully might have noticed a slight change in her demeanor, a subtle shift that suggested this particular visit held special significance for her as well. The preparation for Commander Harrison's observation was intensive. Instructors drilled the trainees harder than ever, ensuring that every aspect of their performance would reflect well on the training program. Equipment was inspected multiple times, uniforms were pressed to perfection, and the training scenarios were rehearsed until they could be executed flawlessly. Commander Harrison arrived on a crisp morning with minimal fanfare, his presence immediately commanding the attention of everyone on the facility. He was a tall man with silver hair and intelligent gray eyes that seemed to catalog everything they saw. His uniform bore the ribbons and insignia of someone who had earned respect through combat rather than politics, and his reputation preceded him like an aura of competence. The morning began with a formal inspection, followed by observations of various training exercises. Commander Harrison moved through the facility with the easy confidence of someone completely comfortable in military environments, asking pointed questions and making notes that would influence careers and futures. During the physical training observation, Maya performed with her usual excellence, but nothing that would single her out from several other high-performing trainees. The weapons training session showed her exceptional marksmanship, but, again, others in the class were equally skilled. It was during the tactical scenario exercise that things began to change. The scenario involved a complex hostage rescue simulation, with trainees assigned different roles and objectives. Maya was placed in an assault team tasked with neutralizing threats and securing civilians. As the exercise unfolded, Commander Harrison positioned himself where he could observe her performance directly. What he saw confirmed reports that had been filtering up through the command structure. Maya moved through the scenario with tactical awareness that spoke of extensive real-world experience. Her decision-making was immediate and correct, her weapons handling was flawless, and her ability to read and respond to dynamic situations was exceptional. But it was a moment during the scenario's climax that would prove pivotal. As Maya's team cleared a room containing mock hostages, her sleeve rode up slightly, revealing just the edge of her concealed tattoo. It was a brief exposure, lasting perhaps 2 seconds, but Commander Harrison's trained eye caught it immediately. The symbols he glimpsed were unmistakable to someone with his background. They weren't random artwork or memorial decoration. They were operational indicators used by a very specific and highly classified unit, symbols that identified the bearer as having served in operations that officially didn't exist. Commander Harrison's entire demeanor shifted in that instant. His casual observation became intense focus, and his eyes tracked Maya's every movement with new understanding. He began asking different questions of the instructors, inquiring about Maya's background, her recruitment, and her performance in ways that suggested knowledge beyond what was contained in standard training reports. When the exercise concluded, Commander Harrison requested a private debriefing with the senior instructors. The conversation that followed was conducted behind closed doors, but the intensity was evident to anyone observing from outside. Hand gestures were animated, voices were raised, and the discussion continued for nearly an hour. Meanwhile, Maya had noticed Commander Harrison's changed attention and recognized the implications immediately. She had been careful to keep her tattoo concealed precisely because of what it represented and who might recognize it. The fact that a senior SEAL commander had caught even a glimpse meant that her carefully maintained cover was about to be blown. That afternoon brought the most revealing moment of the entire visit. Commander Harrison requested to observe one-on-one combat assessments, ostensibly to evaluate individual fighting capabilities. Each trainee was called forward to demonstrate techniques against qualified instructors acting as opponents. When Maya's turn came, Commander Harrison stepped forward personally to serve as her opponent. This was highly unusual, as senior officers typically observed rather than participated directly. But Harrison had reasons for wanting a closer look at Maya's capabilities that went far beyond routine evaluation. "Let's see what you can do, Rodriguez," Harrison said as they faced each other on the training mats. His tone was neutral, professional, but his eyes held a knowledge that made Maya understand this was more than a simple assessment. The sparring match that followed was unlike anything the observing trainees had witnessed. Maya and Commander Harrison moved with a fluidity and precision that spoke of advanced training far beyond standard military combatives. They exchanged techniques that were clearly from specialized programs, using methods that most special operations personnel never learned. What became clear to the experienced instructors watching was that both participants were operating at a level that suggested extensive training in classified programs. The techniques they demonstrated weren't available in any standard curriculum, and their execution required years of specialized instruction. The match ended with both fighters locked in a stalemate, each having demonstrated multiple opportunities to end the encounter. As they separated and bowed respectfully, Commander Harrison's expression had changed completely. The uncertainty was gone, replaced by recognition and something approaching reverence. "Outstanding, Rodriguez," Harrison said, his voice carrying new respect. "Truly outstanding." But it was what happened next that shocked everyone present. As Maya adjusted her uniform after the match, her sleeves shifted again, and this time the exposure of her tattoo was longer and more complete. Commander Harrison saw not just the symbols he had glimpsed earlier, but the complete design with all its implications. The tattoo contained elements that only someone with specific security clearances would recognize. Numbers that indicated participation in classified operations, symbols that designated service in units that existed in the shadows of official military structure, and, most significantly, indicators that showed Maya had served not just in special operations, but in a tier of special operations that was beyond what most SEALs would ever see. Commander Harrison's reaction was immediate and unmistakable. His posture straightened into a position approaching attention, and his expression shifted to one of recognition and respect that bordered on awe. For a moment, the dynamic between them shifted completely. The senior commander was no longer evaluating a trainee. He was acknowledging the presence of someone whose operational experience potentially exceeded his own. "My God," Harrison whispered, his voice barely audible to those nearby. "You're one of them." The cryptic comment meant nothing to the observing trainees and instructors, but Maya understood immediately. Her cover was completely blown, and the careful anonymity she had maintained throughout the training program was about to end. Commander Harrison stepped closer, his voice dropping to a level that wouldn't carry to the observers. "What the hell are you doing here? Why are you going through basic SEAL training when you've already served in?" He caught himself before naming the specific unit, remembering the classified nature of what he was discussing. Maya's response was quiet but clear. "I had my reasons, sir. Personal ones." Harrison nodded slowly, understanding that those reasons would be complex and probably couldn't be discussed in public. But his mind was already working through the implications of having someone with Maya's background and experience in a basic training program. The remainder of Commander Harrison's visit took on a completely different character. While he continued to observe the other trainees professionally, his attention repeatedly returned to Maya with a new understanding of who she was and what her presence in the program meant. That evening, Harrison requested a private meeting with Maya away from the other trainees and instructors. The conversation that took place would remain classified, but its outcome would change everything about Maya's experience in the SEAL program. Word began to spread, though slowly and quietly, that Maya Rodriguez was not what she appeared to be. The exact nature of her background remained classified, but the change in how she was treated by the instructors was immediate and noticeable. The mockery from her fellow trainees began to seem not just inappropriate, but potentially dangerous given what some people now knew about her true capabilities. Maya's secret was out, at least among those with sufficient clearance to understand what her tattoo meant. The question now was how this revelation would change the dynamics of her training and whether her fellow trainees would ever learn the truth about exactly who they had been mocking for all these weeks. The atmosphere at the training facility underwent a subtle but unmistakable transformation following Commander Harrison's visit. While most trainees remained unaware of what had transpired during his private observations, the instructor's behavior toward Maya shifted dramatically. The constant scrutiny and criticism that had characterized her early weeks was replaced by a respectful professionalism that puzzled her classmates. Instructor Thompson, who had been among Maya's harshest critics, now approached her with obvious deference. During equipment checks, he would nod approvingly at her preparations and move on without the excessive scrutiny he had previously applied. More significantly, he began incorporating some of her techniques into his instruction of other trainees, though he never explicitly credited her as the source. The change was most noticeable during advanced tactical training. Maya was quietly moved into leadership roles for complex exercises, with instructors deferring to her judgment in ways that seemed inexplicable to those unaware of her true background. When planning infiltration routes or assault strategies, her recommendations were accepted immediately and without question. But the most dramatic shift came during a specialized training module that was added to the curriculum without explanation. The course covered advanced interrogation resistance, deep cover operations, and psychological warfare techniques that went far beyond standard SEAL training. These were skills typically reserved for the most elite units, and their inclusion puzzled many trainees. Maya approached these lessons with obvious familiarity, demonstrating techniques and sharing insights that clearly came from real-world experience rather than classroom learning. Her knowledge of counter-interrogation methods, her understanding of psychological manipulation tactics, and her ability to maintain cover identities under pressure were all at levels that impressed even the specialized instructors brought in to teach these modules. Meanwhile, the core group of trainees who had been most vocal in their criticism of Maya were beginning to sense that something fundamental had changed. The instructor's new treatment of her was impossible to ignore, and her performance during the advanced training modules was raising uncomfortable questions about their earlier assessments. "Something's not right here," Patterson confided to Morrison during a rare moment of privacy. "The way the instructors are treating her now, it's like she's already proven herself in ways we don't understand." Morrison nodded grimly. "Either she's got connections we never imagined, or there's something about her background we don't know. The way she handled those interrogation scenarios today, it was like she'd done it before. For real." Their speculation was closer to the truth than they realized, but the complete picture remained hidden. Maya's actual background was classified at levels that prevented casual inquiry, and those who now knew the truth were bound by security protocols that made disclosure impossible. The revelation came during what was supposed to be a routine final exercise. The scenario involved a complex multi-phase operation requiring teams to infiltrate, gather intelligence, and extract while facing professional opposition from experienced operators playing enemy roles. It was designed to be the ultimate test of everything the trainees had learned. Maya's team was assigned the most challenging objective, penetrating a heavily defended facility to recover classified materials while avoiding detection. The exercise was expected to take 8 hours and involve multiple phases of infiltration, surveillance, and extraction. Most teams were expected to fail at some point during the operation. What happened next would become legendary within the special operations community. Maya's team completed the entire exercise in 4 hours with perfect execution, neutralizing all opposition without alerting reinforcements, and recovering all objectives while maintaining complete operational security. Their performance was so exceptional that the exercise controllers initially suspected equipment failure or cheating. The debriefing that followed revealed the truth about Maya's tactics and decision-making. She had approached the exercise not as a training scenario, but as a real operation, applying techniques and strategies that came from actual combat experience. Her team movements, her target assessment, and her extraction planning all bore the hallmarks of someone who had conducted similar operations under real-world conditions. Commander Harrison, who had returned to observe the final exercises, watched the debriefing with growing amazement. Even knowing Maya's background, he was impressed by the level of skill she had demonstrated. After the formal session ended, he requested another private meeting with Maya to discuss her future plans and the implications of her performance. "You've proven your point," Harrison told her during their confidential conversation. "Everyone here now understands that you belong in special operations, even if they don't understand how or why. But I have to ask, what's your endgame? Why go through basic SEAL training when you've already served at levels most of these trainees will never reach?" Maya's response revealed motivations that were both personal and professional. "I needed to prove to myself that I could do this without the classified background, sir. That my skills weren't just products of specialized training, but reflected genuine capability that could be earned through conventional channels." Harrison nodded with understanding. "And now that you've proven that, now I finish what I started. I earned the SEAL Trident through the same process as everyone else, regardless of what I did before." The conversation that followed covered career options, security considerations, and the unique position Maya would occupy as someone who had served in highly classified units before earning conventional special operations credentials. Harrison offered several opportunities that would utilize her specialized background, but Maya remained committed to completing her current training path. The final weeks of the program unfolded with Maya continuing to excel while maintaining her emotional distance from both the praise and criticism of her classmates. The mockery had largely ceased, replaced by grudging respect from some and continued hostility from others who couldn't accept that their initial judgments had been wrong. The truth about Maya's tattoo and what it represented remained known only to a select few with appropriate security clearances. But the effects of that knowledge rippled through the training facility in subtle ways that changed how everything was conducted. During the graduation ceremony, Maya stood among her classmates as one of the few who had successfully completed the entire program. Her performance had been consistently exceptional, her character had proven unshakable under pressure, and her skills had exceeded every standard set by the training curriculum. As the newly graduated SEALs received their tridents, Maya reflected on the journey that had brought her to this point. She had proven what she set out to prove, not just to the skeptics who had doubted her, but to herself. The classified operations in her background had given her skills and experience, but she had earned her place among the SEALs through the same process as everyone else. Commander Harrison approached her after the ceremony, his expression mixing pride with curiosity about her future plans. "So what's next, Rodriguez? You've got options that others don't." Maya's response was characteristically direct. "Whatever serves best, sir. I'm not looking for special treatment or recognition. I just want to do the job." Harrison smiled, recognizing in her answer the mindset that had made her successful in her previous classified assignments. "I have a feeling that attitude is going to take you exactly where you need to go." As the newly minted SEALs dispersed to their first assignments, Maya carried with her the satisfaction of having achieved her goal through conventional means despite her unconventional background. The mockery she had endured, the doubt she had faced, and the pressure she had overcome had all served to prove that her capabilities weren't dependent on her classified past but reflected genuine skills that could be earned and demonstrated through standard channels. The tattoo on her shoulder remained a reminder of operations that officially never happened and service that couldn't be publicly acknowledged. But the SEAL Trident she now wore represented something equally valuable, proof that excellence could be achieved through multiple paths and that assumptions about capability were often dangerously wrong. Her fellow graduates would go on to distinguished careers in special operations, but few would ever know that they had trained alongside someone whose experience exceeded their instructors and whose background included operations at the very highest levels of military effectiveness. Maya preferred it that way, understanding that the most effective operators were often those who remained underestimated until the moment their true capabilities were revealed. The story of the recruit who was mocked until a SEAL commander recognized her tattoo would become part of the facility's unofficial legend, told in whispers among instructors who understood its implications. But the complete truth about Maya Rodriguez would remain classified, known only to those with the clearance, and need to know exactly who she had been before she decided to prove herself all over again.